on Fox Sports Midwest. We look forward to that. And then, of course, Hockey Sense and Sports Medicine tomorrow night back-to-back here on the Big 550 KTRS.
And that's at Obie Clark's.
Obie Clark's.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What's going on with your Blues?
Well, you know what? They had a big victory the other night, shootout fashion against the LA Kings, still one of the toughest teams to play in the National Hockey League, one of the toughest venues to play in. And so the Blues have been struggling a little bit. They got a lot of injuries, but they've still been getting points. That's what's most interesting.
That's what I'm saying. All you got to do is tie.
They lost in overtime. They lost in a shootout, and then they won in a shootout on this recent 3-game road trip. So the last 4 games, they've gotten points. So when you're dealing with injuries, obviously you can look at the positive, and that certainly is a positive. Now, in terms of Jake Allen, that's the big question mark right now. Of all the injuries, I mean, Jay Bouwmeester is going to be out an extended period of time. He's got the upper body injury. Same with Carl Gunnarsson. You've got Magnus Payarvi. You've got Paul Stastny, who could play tonight. He hasn't been ruled out for tonight. But Jake Allen has been their MVP thus far this season. He and Vladimir Tarasenko. Allen's been spectacular. He got run into by Corey Perry in Anaheim, left the game early, and right now they're saying week to week, so it's obvious he's going to miss some time.
All right. Do you like this 3-on-3 overtime thing?
You know, I don't mind it at all. I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite and say I don't like it.
Right.
I really do. I mean, when it gets to overtime, I get, extremely interested right away. Now, would I like to see some tweaks made to it? A little bit. But the problem is coaches are so good in the National Hockey League, McGraw. Players are so good in terms of how they defend and in terms of how they've been able to figure this thing out. It isn't exactly the river hockey end-to-end rushes for 5 minutes that we thought that we'd see going into it. It's almost become, at times, it looks like the NBA where it's a half-court offense. You get inside the blue line, you set up shop.
Right.
They're playing man-to-man.
Right.
And it becomes very difficult to penetrate.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a solution to any of that.
No.
I mean, there is no good solution.
No, but you do. But
I mean,
again,
4-on-4. Well, they tried 4-on-4.
They tried 4-on-4. I like the 3-on-3, I got to be honest with you, more than the shootout. So it's funny, McGraw, I've talked to Alexander Steen about this. I've talked to Troy Brouwer, some veteran guys. And you would think Steen would really like the 3-on-3.
Right.
He doesn't like it at all. And he's not alone in that camp. There's a number of players out there who don't like it.
Because it's just more energy? It's just more exposed more?
Well, some of the players feel like it's a gimmick.
It's a different game. It would be like only playing with one outfielder in extra innings.
Yeah, so it's a little gimmicky, and all of a sudden you end the game playing 3-on-3.
Right.
You don't hardly ever see 3-on-3 during course of
I also don't like the
regulation.
point everybody gets a half a point for a tie.
Or
right?
a point.
If you're going to play the game to its conclusion, then somebody wins 2 points and somebody gets no points.
Well, it's been like that before. I think they should change it to where the winner gets 3 points. Almost go like that's the way it is in international play, where the winner gets 3 points.
Right.
And maybe structure it from that point.
Right, because you're getting anyway.
I think it's so tough to win in the National Hockey League. It really is.
It's also hard to move up the standings.
Yeah, it's so difficult to win. That I think if you get to overtime, you get to a shootout, it'd be difficult to lose in a shootout and then walk away with 0 points.
How many there are a lot of ties in hockey.
Well, there are. It's funny. They're playing the New Jersey Devils tonight. Every time I turn around, I feel like they're playing in a shootout or an overtime.
Right.
It seems like every one of their games ends in a 1-goal game. I looked it up last night. I think they have 26 of their 43 games have ended in 1-goal games. So it's kind of crazy. So don't be surprised if we see another one tonight.
All right, 8:53 here, Big 550 KTRS. Andy Strickland, you're the man in the know. What are you hearing from the owners' meeting down in Houston?
Well, we'll have to sit back and wait and see how this thing plays out in terms of the vote. But this is playing out, I think, exactly the way we all thought it would in terms of you and I having this conversation the last several weeks. I really believed at the end of the day, the NFL, the owners, their preference is to put St. Louis and San Diego and Los Angeles.
Right.
It's not to put Oakland there. They don't want Oakland, at least their owner, taking up one of the 2 spots in Los Angeles. And if this thing was going to work, it wasn't going to be because of the votes. It didn't look like San Diego or St. Louis is going to have enough support by the other owners to get enough votes.
Right.
And they were going to have to work a backroom deal to partner together to make this happen. And if that's their only option, I would be shocked if they elect not to do that. Now, Stan Kroenke has said, you know what, I'll work with San Diego. San Diego has said, listen, we're committed to Oakland. We don't want to work with Stan Kroenke. There appears to be some bad blood. But I think
money
when it's all
changes
set
all that.
well, and if you really want to go that bad, then that can certainly change. But Stan Kroenke is going to have to come off
I think the Chargers. I think the Chargers are putting the screws to Kroenke. They want all sorts of revenue and future revenue, and that's right. If it's a 50-50 deal,
it's got to be a 50-50.
Then guess what? When the Rolling Stones play at the new stadium, they want half the money.
If that's the only way Stan Kroenke is going to get to L.A., then I think he's going to be willing to make some concessions. And I think the NFL and the rest of the owners are going to be telling Stan Kroenke that he's going to have to make some concessions. Otherwise, this isn't going to work. I've never, McGraw, in my life, ever seen an owner in any sport so hell-bent on leaving his current town as this guy is. You could offer Stan Kroenke a $10 billion stadium where he doesn't have to pay a single cent and nobody else gets money. He gets 100% of the revenue, and he still wouldn't stay here.
No, he
wants out of here so bad. It's crazy.
Somebody's writing a book about how disrespectful the NFL is to St. Louis and how brutal Stan Kroenke is to the region. No, you're right. It's
I mean, have you ever seen anything like it? This guy wants out so bad.
I was reading the response earlier that the St. Louis task force sent to the NFL.
Right.
And it's, 5 or 6 pages, small type. But they say in this, now this is what St. Louis has offered to the NFL. This $400 million public stadium of the one, St. Louis or in the region is going to pay $400 million of it. Mm-hmm. It would represent the 5th highest public contribution in the history of the NFL. And over the last 20 years, St. Louis has contributed over $800 million to keep and retain the NFL here in St. Louis, including this new proposal. So all of that, right? And the list goes on and on and on. And then at the final thing, it says, St. Louis can and will work with Stan Kroenke. No irreparable harm has been done to our relationship or to the potential to forge a true partnership that will serve the NFL, the Rams, and St. Louis for decades to come.
Well, let me just say this.
I mean,
this is where I do a show on Fridays with Frank Cusimano, and he and I were having this conversation last week, and I'm shocked when I hear the number of people out there who say that if Kroenke is forced to stay here, all will be forgiven, and they'll find a way to accept this guy again. I mean, you got to be kidding me.
No.
You've got to be absolutely
No, my
kidding
wife
me.
cheats on me, flaunts it, puts up pictures on the internet, and, goes on TV and says he's a bum, and now she wants to come back.
Right. Well,
that's what I say.
So that's what it's come to. Now we just want to forgive Stan Kroenke.
No, I'm not going to.
If he's forced to stay, you got to be kidding me. and Kroenke, in my opinion, and that's why he made the comments he did in his statement to the NFL, which
he's trying to make it as bad as possible.
That was a last-ditch effort. He's in desperation mode. He knows
he's in cell mode.
He knows he would never survive here. It would never work if he's forced to stay here.
It's his own choice, though.
Well, you're right, but he knows that. So if he were forced to stay here, he knows he wouldn't be the long-term
owner. If he's
forced
to stay, maybe he'll be forced to sell. Hockey Sense tomorrow night. Obie Clark starts at 7 o'clock.